Well, there is much that we could play with in the story of Nicodemus, and over the years I have played with it, expressed it in different ways. But what struck me, perhaps because of all the events that are happening in our world at the moment, in this country and overseas and overnight, I was influenced to hear in the story first of Abram, then the story of Nicodemus and Jesus, that in both of them we are approaching the unknown. Abram goes on the promise of God, not quite knowing where, but with lots of promises about the what and the why. God says go, and he says, okay, I'm up for that, I'll go. And, Lot decides to hang out too. And then we have Nicodemus, and Nicodemus' note comes after dark. And he comes to question Jesus because there's something about Jesus that is unknown to him. Nicodemus comes and asks, well, actually, it's more of a statement. We know you are a teacher who has come from God, for no one can do these signs that you do apart from the presence of God. Now, I'm sure you know your Gospel of John well, but just to remind you, the signs that we have seen thus far, including changing water into wine at the wedding in Cana because his mother told him to, and driving the traders and the money changers out of the temple, driven by zeal for God's house, so John tells us. So we can only assume that Jesus' action and his passion have stirred something in Nicodemus. Nicodemus is brave enough, or you might say foolish enough, to ask further. Even though a religious leader, Nicodemus is willing to press the edge of what he knows, of what God expressing might look like. And then we have Jesus' response, which quite frankly is weird. It's completely illogical. In response to "we know you are a teacher," Jesus says, "No one can enter the kingdom of God without being born from above." And Nicodemus' literalist response is equally baffling. Can one, once you have grown old, be born again from the mother's womb? It's as if Jesus and Nicodemus are talking absolutely past each other. Neither is able to listen to or hear the other, and they don't seem to understand each other. Now, I think it's fair to say that we are assuming that Jesus and Nicodemus are people of integrity. They each, therefore, come with a storyline, the way that they have made sense of the world and of the way things are. We know that both of them are Jewish. Even so, they are not meeting one another. It is as if they have storylines running absolutely parallel. Each of us story our lives. We do so to make sense of who we are and of our world. It is reasonable, it is perfectly sensible that we do so. Our storylines reveal how we understand the world. Hopefully they do change a bit as we get older and as we have different experiences of the world. But I would contest that there is something foundational that grounds them, some aspects. You could call them values or a way of orienting how we are in the world. Oftentimes our stories will resonate with those we are in relationship with, which is likely why we are in relationship with them. Now, throughout life, I am sure that you have met and known people who are quite different to you. People with a worldview that, when you hear it, is incredibly foreign. Despite such differences, we have usually managed to find enough in common to muddle along together without having to change the other person. However, things seem to have changed after the COVID pandemic. Forced to isolate from one another, People began to connect online. Connectivity through social media platforms that, as we know, led to alternative interpretations of reality. The growth of what is now coined conspiracy theories. For those who engaged in those things, such alternative is real, even as those who were not engaged remain sceptical. We no longer live with the restrictions of COVID. However, ways of relating that were learned and legitimated in that time seem to continue. Unbridled rhetoric, it's being acceptable to speak and to act with temerity, without respect for or recognition of another person's humanity, without a sense of responsibility for the impact or the consequence of such speech or action. Sadly, we are hearing such rhetoric in the words of leaders of nations. We are seeing it in decisions made and actions taken by those in leadership who exercise their authority as power over others. Leaders elected to office by people who entrusted them with their care. There has always been a mix of storylines, those that are aligned, those that are parallel, or those that conflict. But increasingly, our stories and we ourselves are moving apart and away from one another. More polarized in the way we think things need to be done and the way things should be done. I have a storyline, a worldview. Sure, as I said, it changes and it adapts, but there is an orientation from which I engage and through which I interact with others. We all do. An orientation that is often implicit. We're not so aware of it until made explicit when it gets tested. Tested by encountering people with storylines that express values and priorities opposite to mine. For me, those who espouse the necessity to decide and act for self-protection in ways that destroy the lives and the livelihoods of the most vulnerable. A type of storyline that, to me, denies and acts to destroy the life and the dignity of another. I find it incomprehensible. It contradicts things I value and hold dear. I am repelled. I want to distance myself. I want to cast out people that espouse such view. I want to make them other. Ironically, I want to deny them the very dignity of shared personhood that I accuse them of. But if I am able to discern through that haze of my visceral response, I can see that my way of storying, of saying what appropriate action and decision look like, may be as repellent to them as theirs is to me. It is as if we inhabit parallel universes. We are talking past each other. We are unable and unwilling to hear, much less to listen to one another. But those stories that we make up, our view of the world that we think is right and is valid, you know what? We create them. We make them up to suit us. They are only as real as we insist they are. Can we be sure that our story, evolving from our experience, is any more valid than the story of someone whose story runs opposite to our own? Yet surely we're more than the stories we tell. Would our identity be forfeit should the world be different from what we imagined? Have we come to use those stories to protect ourselves from others? And weirdly, to protect ourselves from ourselves? To shore up a sense of certainty that our life has meaning and purpose, to avoid the uncertainty wrought by all that is unknown, those fears and frustrations and desires that arise in us, fearful of allowing the unknown too close because we have no idea where it might lead. If we were to accept that our worldview is malleable and not fixed, would we disappear? Or would it open us to encounter our world and ourselves more deeply? From each other's stories, learn what being human in the world looks like more deeply, more widely, greater than our singularity and those we preferred to associate with. Through the difference of others, see more fully the complex richness of life. The unknown to us that we fear may not be the same unknown to someone else. I acknowledge this is not going to fix the world. Our polarizing differences. It's not going to make our world smooth and ordered and aligned. But who decided that that is the way the world is meant to be? We pin our hopes on creating a story that organizes and makes sense of the world, for then surely we will know who we are, we will know our purpose, and most of all, we will know the reason for our existence. But you know what? The world is mixed and muddled and messy and dangerous and frightening and delightful. Without clear reason, without explanation or tidy solutions. Like it or not, this is the nature of existence into which we come and are born and become aware. From where we come and to where we go, we know not nor how. But along the way, let's consider how we live. And again, I'm borrowing words from Roberta Che Espinosa. When we nurture the wisdom of wonder, we begin to move differently through the world. We speak slower. We listen longer. We approach one another with the curiosity of kinship, rather than the certainty of correctness. We remember that not knowing is not a failure. It is an invitation to intimacy with mystery.